Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the WorryFree Retirement with Tony Walker. And now, the host of the WorryFree Retirement, John Ramsey.
And welcome to the WorryFree Retirement, the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money. With us now is none other than the author and creator himself, Senior Market Advisor Magazine's finalist for Advisor of the Year, Mr. Tony Walker. Tony, before we get started into the meat of what the show is all about, wanted to ask you about your weekend with your wife, Susan. How was it?
I had a good weekend. It's kind of funny. She said, we need a date night. You know, I guess a couple of weeks ago, the marshmallows just didn't hold on very long, John. I thought that was a date night. But anyway, she goes, we need a date night. Of course, we live in Bowling Green, in the Bowling Green, Kentucky area. And she said, I've bought us tickets for Neil Sedaka. And I had to think, Neil Sedaka, man, I can't even remember what songs he wrote. Can you think of any songs?
Yeah, he wrote Bad Blood. He had a Sweet 16 song. He had,
Okay. And had a huge orchestra. Of course, he was out there. He's in his mid-70s or so. I mean, talking about a talented guy. And he's working on composing. He was a classical pianist. I never knew that. All the songs, and he started playing all these songs. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's another one. I remember that. And pretty amazing fella. And it got me thinking about people as they get into their senior years, John. You know, we work with a lot of people who are obviously retired.
Sure.
And he made the comment at one of his breaks. He said, at this stage in life, I'm wanting to get back into classical music. He recomposed something that he was working on and played it. And he made the comment, he said, I'm kind of trying to reinvent myself at this age. I just thought that was a cool comment. And, you know, there's so many seniors and retirees I work with, and I think it's an encouragement to folks out there that you're never too old to try new things. And I think that's the message. That's part of the WorryFree Retirement. You know, in the book, The WorryFree Retirement, it talks about this idea of really not having a notion of a set age to retire. And where did this notion of retirement even really come from? What is the definition of retirement? It's different for different people. We're going to be talking about this one-size-fits-all message, but the same thing for retirement, John. I mean, it's going to look different for different people. Neil Sedaka's in his 70s. I don't even know when he was born. And you know what? He's still enjoying music. He's still enjoying entertaining. And I just thought that part of it for me as a retirement specialist really hit home, and I really admired the guy. I really do.
I do as well. I'm glad you had a good weekend. Something I wanted to ask you about, because it's dominating the media so much, newspapers, newscasts. You can't get around it. Everyone is talking about health care in this country, and specifically Obamacare. I know the government's talking about shutting it down. You may have read this. With that being said, I know you're not a healthcare expert, but it does involve what you do a little bit. So I'm curious, could you give me your take on Obamacare and healthcare in this country?
Well, anything, I cut my teeth in the insurance world. You know, in 1984, I've been around insurance and insurance products and risk. You know, insurance, whenever you think of anything insurance related, car, home, life, health, disability, there has to be something measurable, a risk that has to be measurable so the insurance company can measure that risk, quantify what they think the risk to them is. You give them premium, in exchange they pay out benefits. I think the problem with health care in general, John, it's not Obama's fault, it's not the politicians' fault. I think they're all trying to deal with it. Is there is no way to quantify dollar-wise and measure risk in health insurance. Think about that for a minute. Any day you could go to the doctor for a normal checkup and they find out you need a $300,000 surgery. See, how do you manage that kind of risk? So I think all in all, what I'd have to tell people is when you're dealing with insurance companies or insurance risks, John, I always want to know what are the moving parts here. So folks, if you're thinking about anything, and we'll talk about this later with annuities, remember with insurance companies, whether it's Obamacare introducing different types of insurance that are going to have to be funded somehow, you always want to say, okay, what's the moving parts to this situation? And as I understand the moving parts there, it's always in health insurance premiums. So here's my prediction on this, folks. Whatever the premiums are starting out to be, my gut feeling is those premiums will go up. You know, Social Security, the same thing happened. The government was going to solve all of our welfare woes. They introduced Social Security. Oops, people are living longer. We didn't plan on that. Right. What did they do? They tried to increase benefits, but at some point you can't do that. So now all of a sudden they extend out the benefits in terms of when you can get them, plus they're starting to tax those benefits differently. So with the healthcare thing, people have to realize that moving part is insurance premiums. My gut feeling is it'll get played out. Things will go along. They'll realize it's probably not going to work as planned. Nobody really knows what's in the law, and then insurance premiums will just jack them up. That's the moving part they have to work with.
There's another topic I want to bring up, Tony, and you touched upon it just a tad bit here. It's that one-size-fits-all. I watch a lot of the so-called financial experts. You may do the same. And it seems to me they're all stuck in this a real dogmatic approach about how this one size, whatever their calling card may be, this fits you. And they're so I don't know, determined to kind of stuff that down your throat.
Oh, yeah.
What I love about the worry-free retirement process is it isn't one size fits all. It is different. I think it's very refreshing. And if you would, tell me what you think about this one size fits all approach. I do see a lot of it. I do.
I think what happens, John, first of all, I think these people, majority of them are very intelligent people. And I don't deny that they don't believe in what they believe in. We're going to see an article in a minute on annuities. But I'll kind of close this segment out with an interesting situation that came up in the Bible that we refer to. I call it the Nicodemus syndrome. Do you remember this fellow that was a very, very learned man? He knew the law. He approaches Jesus, and he's asking how to be born again. And Jesus describes to him how you're going to have to be born again. And Nicodemus says, wait a minute, you mean I got to go back in my mother's womb and come? I mean, he was clueless. What the problem with Nicodemus was he believed in what he believed so much that when somebody challenged him with new information, I don't think he wasn't smart enough to figure it out. He was so dogmatic in what he had always believed, and he was so far down that road to even understand or see what somebody was trying to explain was impossible. So folks, what you got out there sometimes, you got to understand a lot of these pundits and these so-called financial experts out there, I believe they're caught up in what I call the financial Nicodemus effect. They've been preaching and teaching this dogma so long that when new information comes along, rather than accepting that new information and trying to learn it, they challenge it because the new information is challenging what they've always been preaching and teaching. So here's how you know if you got a one-size-fits-all advisor or prognosticator and why you need to get a second opinion. If they ever say never, ever. If we're going to talk about annuities, there's an ad I saw where a guy says, I hate annuities and here's why you should too. Folks, you got a Nicodemus on your hands. You've got to get a second opinion. A good financial advisor, a good retirement specialist is always trying to match up the right products for the right situation. There is no terrible product. There is no one-size-fits-all magic bullet. Your job is to find retirement specialists that can match the products to your financial personality. And I think that's the key, John, to a worry-free retirement and cutting through all this noise and making sure to expose the financial Nicodemuses out there.
All right. And if you're looking for that advisor, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. And I want to remind you once again, we are the only show in the country that is dedicated to helping savers worry less about their money. We're going to tell you how you can worry less. Coming up, hang with us. We are the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker.
How would you like to find a trusted advisor in your area who practices and preaches the same safe money solutions that I speak of on this program? Well, you can by simply logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and clicking on the Find an Advisor link. Once there, just fill out the confidential profile and submit it. This free service is available to savers who are serious about safeguarding their money. So what are you waiting for? Stop worrying and log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Hey Tony, I was just wondering, I actually have more than one retirement account, and I was wondering, can I take both of those accounts and roll them together? And if I do that, would there be taxes on that? And if so, how much, on what percentage?
You know, folks, one of the things I find out from working in the trenches for nearly 30 years, as people get a little older, get closer to retirement, or they're already in retirement, sometimes the key to a worry-free retirement is getting things simplified, getting things organized. I always remind people, I said, you know, the one problem you have with getting older, sometimes the old ticker up there starts slowing down a little bit and it's harder to keep up with things. So yes, there's nothing wrong at all with considering what we call consolidating various IRAs, 401ks. Those can all be commingled into one retirement account, and many times that makes a lot of sense, especially if you're working with a retirement specialist. If we're doing something called laddering that we might get into in this show down the road a little bit more, it may make sense to have 2 or 3 different accounts. That's perfectly okay. To transfer existing IRAs or 401ks, if done properly, there's usually no cost to do so. There's no taxes. Remember, with an IRA, 401k, any of those kind of accounts, if they're moved around properly and they go from what's called a qualified plan to another qualified plan, there's no taxes. What you have to be careful of is if you pull that money out, when you yank it out of there and put it in your pocket, or if you take it out inappropriately and then try to roll it over, sometimes you can get hit with those nasty taxes, something I call the tax tumor. So again, what I would suggest you do, if you have several retirement accounts, if you feel like you're a little scattered and you need somebody to help you get those organized, if you're down in the Southern Kentucky area where this show is being rebroadcast, you can contact our office at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. The number's on your screen. Let's go to the website right now if we can, because if you're outside that viewing area, if you're in any of these other states or these markets that are watching the show right now, what you do is go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and if you can scroll down there for me to the very bottom of the page, see where it says there, Find an Advisor in Your Area. You simply click on there, fill out the information sheet, and we will get in touch with you, somebody who is trained and has like-mind philosophy of what we do, which is the safe money approach and working for savers. So again, if you're outside the Southern Kentucky area, click on that Find an Advisor area, and we can help certainly line you up with somebody at no cost or obligation that can give you a second opinion on these retirement accounts. That was a mouthful, John.
Well, now we get to put you to work doing something that you really love, which is the teaching aspect of Tony Walker.
Yeah, you know, these annuities, if I can, because people always say, well, I want an example of this one-size-fits-all fella. If we can go to the Elmo, I've got a little article up here, John. Let's take a look at the Elmo, folks, and this is kind of interesting. Now, I'll read this to you. I know sometimes this is hard to read, but this came out of Financial Planning Magazine. It says, despite a tarnished reputation, and I want to say who tarnished it, okay? Annuities make sense for some clients. You see the hypocrisy right there. Somebody's calling it tarnished. Well, the people that tarnished probably were the people that never understood these things. Now, all of a sudden, they're trying to figure out how to sell them because they realize annuities do make sense. Look at this, though. The third paragraph down, I'm going to read it to you. Again, this came out of the Insured Retirement Institute's annual Vision Conference. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? But anyway, apparently it was a lot of know-it-alls trying to figure this out and trying to figure out how these annuity products work. Here's what they say. One of the major hurdles is the increasing complexity of annuity products. Not only can they be difficult for advisors to understand, you listen to this, John, difficult for advisors to understand, but explaining the ins and outs to clients represents an even bigger challenge. It goes on down the third paragraph. I love this quote. This gentleman says, the financial advisor has to feel comfortable enough to explain them to clients. All right, thank you.
I hope so.
Well, yeah. So here's here's how I look at stuff like this. So what that means is, if an advisor is not comfortable with them, that's okay. But if it's because the advisor hasn't taken time to learn the products, doesn't understand them, doesn't have a process for the products, and then is not telling the clients about it, wouldn't you say that's kind of a disservice to just kind of poo-poo annuities?
I agree. I totally agree. And I think that's the reason why you do get any negativity on annuities. They just don't understand how they work.
So this was some academics and I'm telling you, some probably very bright people, and what they're saying is these products are confusing, they're difficult for us to explain, so therefore we're not even going to bring them up. And I would say, well, that's ridiculous, especially for savers, because folks, if you're a saver, I mean, what we're getting ready to show you here now, especially these fixed annuity products for savers are incredible tools for retirement products. What I'm going to do, let's go over to the whiteboard here. I'm going to show you a few things. I know John likes to watch me on the whiteboard here. I'll try to go slow with this because this is the really important stuff we're going to cover. If we can, if we're ready in there, let's go over the 4 types of annuities. Let's see if we have those slides ready. I'm going to go through those 4 types. Any type of annuity you buy, folks, there's all kinds of hybrids. There's a myriad of annuities out there, but they're going to fall into one of these 4 categories, all right? It's either going to be a fixed interest annuity. I'm going to explain that in just a second. That's the first type of annuity. The second type of annuity is something we don't recommend for savers. It's called a variable annuity. We'll show you that in a minute. Obviously, it's tied to the stock market. It's variable. It can go way up. It can go way down. That's the second type. The third type of annuity, these were introduced in the late 90s. These are the ones that I think are pretty cool. You're going to see in a minute for savers. They're called fixed indexed annuities. These are not securities products, folks. Fixed interest, fixed indexed. Anytime you see the word fixed attached to annuity, It's not a securities product. That means Wall Street is probably not going to recommend them, does not like them. Wall Street loves the variable because a variable is a securities product. And then finally, the fourth type of annuity is what's called an immediate annuity. And I like to just explain this as like a pension. So in other words, you want your income immediately. It would be in the safe territory, and those can be applicable as well. Okay, thank you. So what I want to share here with you, in the essence of time, and if we run out of time in this segment, I'm probably going to have to come back to this. This is important stuff. This is the kind of stuff I do in what I call my Annuities 101 workshop. I've used these same 4 positions to show you for years, and every time I show this to people, I swear I think the people feel like they know more than the financial world about these annuities. Don't make this overly complicated. Let's kind of graphically look at all 4. Let's take a look first at what we call the fixed, remember, interest, right? So we have the fixed interest annuity, and each one of these, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a very brief timeline here, and we'll imagine these are years. Obviously, this is not to scale, folks. But let's say you put $100,000 in this fixed interest annuity. As of date, they're paying about 2.5%, a little more than bank CDs, so they're a nice replacement to consider for bank CDs. And what would happen at the end of the year, in this example, you'd have $2,500 guaranteed at the end of year 1. Now here's the beauty of a fixed interest annuity. Let's say the interest rates dropped, okay? If they drop back down, it doesn't matter. John, I love this terminology because what happens with a fixed annuity is you have a new floor. So that means what you made last year, even if interest rates go down, you can't lose what you had. Now obviously, let's say if interest rates drop to 1%, you get 1% on 1025, but this is what savers love. Savers don't like to see something on paper and see it go away the next day. So what happens is you have this continual growth up, and it's similar to a CD. All right, we're going to have to take a quick break here. I've got the other 3 types of annuities John and I are going to discuss. So if you have a current annuity, or if you're thinking about buying an annuity, you're going to want to stay tuned for this. This is going to help you and arm you with ammunition. And don't forget, at the end of the program, we're going to talk to you about how to find someone in your area, someone that specializes in these annuities, that understands them for savers, and we'll give you information on how to contact those folks as well. All right, John, take it away.
All right, more annuity information coming up. Remember, this is the Worry-Free Retirement, the only show dedicated to helping savers worry less about their money. We'll be right back.
For nearly 30 years, I've made it my life's work to help savers worry less about money. And now I invite you to personally contact me to discuss your situation to see if I can help you. It's very easy. You just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and click on the Meet with Tony link. Or if you like, you can attend one of my free financial workshops. As always, there's never any cost or obligation to meet and discuss your situation in private. So what are you waiting for? Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Hey Tony, I was just wondering, every month I get these statements from an account, and I wonder why it's so difficult to understand the actual fees and expenses. I've talked to the agent and can't get any straight answer, and I was just wondering if you might be able to explain to me why that's so difficult to get from them.
Oh boy, these fees. I mean, we talk about the 4 costs of money all the time. One of the biggest costs out there right now are fees. It's something we've exposed years ago, and I think the key is just to trying to be transparent about these fees. It's very difficult. Now, what was interesting the other day, actually someone came into me at the office and wanted me to look at their situation. This happens all the time. I look at all their portfolio. I'm a registered investment advisor. We do this all the time. But what I thought was refreshing about this, actually they had been to a stockbroker, and the stockbroker had actually given them a very, very basic looking fee sheet. But when they saw the fees the way they were laid out, let's take a look at the Elmo here. I've got a copy of this showed up here. John, you'll get a kick out of this. So we're ready to the Elmo. Look at this, John. Okay. This is, okay, for the first $500,000 of assets. Now, by the way, the majority of people I work with, unlike the TV ads that show everybody walking around with the cardboard cutouts with $2 and $3 million, that's not what most people have. So, John, if you're looking at this, the first $500,000, if you had exactly $500,000 with this investment firm, What's that annual fee over there? What's that say?
2.5%.
Okay, can you do the math on that real quick? Do you know what that represents? How much is that?
About $25,000, right?
Okay, be half of that. Yeah, that's the way to do math. You take the million times 2.5 gives you 25, divide it in half. But okay, $12,500. Now, is there any guarantees on that money? What would you say? No.
No.
Okay. And look at it dropping down, but what was interesting down there at the very bottom, it's off the screen, it says, please cap the fees at 1.25. I guess somebody typed that in. So then my question was, well, that's a good deal. I mean, if you're over 5 million, this person didn't have 5 million. Apparently the advisor just overrode the fee schedule. But my question was, John, does everybody get that deal?
No.
I don't know unless you
have that kind of money.
Well, unless you ask. Okay, thank you. So what I'm trying to say is, folks, when you're out here meeting with advisors, you have to know what questions to ask. Ask for fees in writing. We even have on the website at TonyWalkerFinancial.com, if you're looking at an annuity, we have what's called the annuity fee sheet. You can go to Annuities 101, click on that 101 tab at the very top, and it'll upload an annuities fee sheet that you can then download, print out, and take into your advisor. So I'd encourage you to make sure you know these fees, because the fees can have an enormous drag on your wealth and eventually what you get to use and enjoy, which is what the WorryFree Retirement's all about. Let's find the money, let's hang on to the money. That's what savers want. Okay, back to the whiteboard. We're going to try to close out the show here, but I got to cover this. All right, we talked about fixed interest annuities and the new floor. Let's look at variable annuities. And I know red does not show up well on TV, but I got to use red for effect, okay? Again, this is in the stock market. So let's just say this variable annuity goes up 50% and you have $150,000. Now, John, that has not been liquidated, so that is money on paper. Is it really real money yet?
No.
Okay, that's why they call this an unrealized gain. And just the folks, you savers out there who are thinking about jumping off the fiscal cliff and trying to dive back into the stock market because you feel like you've missed out, be very, very careful. Remember, all of these stock market gains, they're not realized until you liquidate them and put them in your pocket. So be careful now jumping back in. But nevertheless, with a variable annuity, it can go up, way up. The problem is it can go way down because there is no floor. This is what savers don't like. Savers don't like losing sleep over the fact that they wake up one day and the market's tanking and they don't know when to pull out. It's very difficult to time the market. Then you hope the market comes back, but in this example, let's say that's a total of 1, 2, 3 years. You could have this 3 years and be right back to zero, and we haven't even gotten into fees yet. All right, let's go over to fixed indexed annuities. That's interesting. I had a gentleman approach me back in the late 90s when I was managing money and introduced this concept of a fixed indexed annuity that had just come out. John, I was kind of a financial know-it-all. I thought, why would I want this product when I'm managing money making people 20 and 30%? Remember back in the 90s, the heyday of the 90s? Okay. Well, he said this to me. He says, well, Walker, here's how these work. When the market goes up, what we're going to do, we'll pay you 1% of the market. Not all of it, which I didn't sound real interesting to me. But then when the market goes down, remember it's fixed, key element here to a fixed indexed annuity, we're going to give you a new floor. Now, the problem was in the 90s, I wasn't thinking much about this, folks, and I really didn't think the market would drop down as much as it did after 2001. I really wished I'd had this floor for a lot of my clients because their accounts were going down. I'm still charging fees. That didn't seem fair to me, but that's how Wall Street and the world worked, and that's why I guess I got a little even aggravated with that world. But basically, then when the market goes back up, the beauty is of these fixed indexed annuities, this can go back up with it. So what happens is you have this stair-step effect. Some years you don't make anything, some years you do. So this is a great product for savers, a product, by the way, that I've emphasized a lot on this show. The final product we're going to show you in the essence of time, we're not using these as much, but this is a possibility as well, is the fixed, what we call immediate annuity. What you do here is if you gave the insurance company $100,000, this is what you see a lot of times in the mailers you're getting in the mail, and they say, how would you like to make 5.5% return on your money? Well, really what they're talking about here is an immediate annuity. That is defined as a payout. So anytime you see these high rates of return, remember the insurance companies aren't paying that. Remember what they're paying? About 2.5%. So you got to read the fine print. This is an immediate annuity. It's a payout rate. So what that means in that example is you would get $5,500 for life, but John, the problem with this is it's kind of like old granddad's pension. Eventually what happens is that annuity pays out and pays out and pays out. Eventually it's going to just basically run out of money. So folks, again, let me take you to a little booklet you can get. Go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Let's show that website again. This is going to help you. A little booklet I wrote. Click on the Annuities 101 tab. When you click on that Annuities 101 tab at the top of the page, it's going to upload for you not only the annuity fee sheet that you can use, it's also going to upload for you the annuities booklet. You can download this free annuities booklet. It's absolutely free. You can download it. And in fact, John, we were going to do something as well, because some people may not want to download an ebook. They may want the hard copy of that book. What we were going to do is, the first 10 people that email me, will send them a hard copy of the 10 biggest misconceptions of annuities. We'll send that to them. All they got to do is go to Contact Tony and request the booklet. Make sure they put their name and mailing address and phone number on there so we can get that to them. First 10 in all the markets.
You know, you articulated that very well, an explanation of all the annuities, Tony. I appreciate that. And again, it's very refreshing because there's so many of these people saying, hey, one size fits all. This fits you. Tony, you would say these different products are for different people.
That's right. Different for different strokes.
All righty. We are the Worry-Free Retirement. That's right. We are dedicated to helping savers worry less about their money. We'll be right back.
How would you like to find a trusted advisor in your area who practices and preaches the same safe money solutions that I speak of on this program? Well, you can by simply logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and clicking on the Find an Advisor link. Once there, just fill out the confidential profile and submit it. This free service is available to savers who are serious about safeguarding their money. So what are you waiting for? Stop worrying and log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Once again, if you live in or near Southern Kentucky, then Tony would like to meet with you personally. You can go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and make an appointment. Or if you live outside of that area, if you're in one of our other special markets, then don't forget, go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and click on Find an Advisor. And Tony would be glad to help you out. Tony, thank you for all the information. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I enjoyed it as always. Thanks, John.
And we'll see you next time on the Worry-Free Retirement, right here.
You've been watching the Worry-Free Retirement with financial advisor Tony Walker. To ask Tony a question or to find an advisor in your area, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.